Welcome back to the Q Developer. Today I'm going to be building a password generator in C++. This is a great way to learn about several core programming concepts. Again, functions, loops, conditional statements, and string manipulation. During this little exercise, we'll walk through the process of creating a C++ password generator. I'll try to explain each part of the code, and by the end, hopefully you'll have a clear understanding of how the program works and the principles behind generating secure random data. So, the C++ code needs to be split into two main parts: a function that generates the password, and the main program that handles the user input and calls the function. So the important libraries I'll be including will be iostream, string, a vector, a ctime, and cstdlib. So the iostream, which I've used before and will continue to use, is a pretty powerful library. This is for input and output. It allows us basically to print to the screen or print to the text console, and also take user input via the keyboard. Now the string library provides a string class. This is powerful. This is very powerful for handling sequence of characters, text. Now the vector is one that's fairly new, one that I'm not sure that I've actually introduced before, but we will be using here. Now, while it's included in this code, I may not actually use it. So the std vector class, it's a dynamic array, and it's useful for creating lists of elements that can grow or shrink in size. ctime and cstdlib, well, these two are crucial for random number generation. cstdlib contains the random and the srand functions. However, rand on its own won't produce the same sequence of random numbers. It will just continue to do the same thing over and over. So we'll have a repeating random sequence. It just won't change. So if the random sequence is between 1 and 5, it may produce 2, 3, 5, 4, 1, and then if I run it again, it'll do the same sequence, exactly the same. So in order to repair this, what I'm going to need to do is I actually need to seed the number, the number generator. I have to give it a different value each time. This is where ctime comes in. It basically takes the time. And since the time changes, I can have a new number to seed it every time, therefore getting different results. So the generate password function, this is going to return a string. I need to pass in a length, a boolean for whether it's to use lowercase, a boolean for whether it's to use uppercase, and a boolean to whether or not it's going to use numbers, and a boolean for whether it's going to use symbols. And it will return a string. That will be what's known as the function signature. Now the length will be the desired length of the password. The lowercase and uppercase, the numbers and the symbols, well, these will be flags that we can set the function to use if we want to include each one of those for a more secure password, more complicated password. So let's take a look inside the function. So I need to create the string of all the lowercase letters. So I'll create a string of that. I also need to create a string with all the uppercase letters, also for the numbers and for all the symbols. Now these lines, which are all constant, each holds the different set of characters. Now I use const because I don't want them to change. I don't want this to ever change. So now I need to use a few if statements. And I need to check and see already, are we going to use lowercase, uppercase, numbers, and or symbols. This will help build that string. So then I need to create an empty string. I'll call that string character pool. Then using the if statements, I check each one of the booleans. Then I need to check to see if that character string is empty. And if it is, well then I need to select one less character. I'll issue an error. Now this is an important piece of error handling. The reason why is because if the user chooses no for all the character types, then the character pool will remain empty. In this case, the program, it can't generate a password. So the function is going to need to return an error message as a string. So now I need to create the password loop. So I'll go through the length of the password, and then I'll begin to generate the random indexes. And I can just use my random function call, get the modulus of the length, and then just start adding to that password. Now the heart of the generation process is what we're just viewing. We initialize that empty string called password, but you got to run through that loop. Once that's completed, well then I can return the password. So that's the generate password function. Now let's take a look at the main function. So inside here, this is where I actually want to reach out and communicate something to the user. So I basically want to say to the user, this is the name of the program, C++ password generator. I'll then prompt the user for them to begin adding to this application, basically interacting with it, so that they can create their password. Now I want to check that length, because if the length is less than or equal to 0, well then it's invalid and it returns nothing. Otherwise, I'll go through the if statements. Now the first if statement, it'll check whether the entered length is a positive number. If not, it'll return an error. The second will check to see which Boolean flag is true. If they're all false, it means nothing works. It'll also return an error. And finally, I'm going to call the generate password function. I'll pass in all the user entered information, all of their settings, feed that to the generate password method, and then it'll run through. Now, once the code is completed, well, I can then move on. Then I'll compile the program, and then we'll run it. Now, this is a great starting point. But here are a few suggestions. Maybe you could try this on your own. Try to make the randomness a little better. Right now I'm using rand, but what could you use that may be better? Maybe you could use a different random generator. Now I hope you've enjoyed watching this. This project is a decent foundation for understanding how to combine user input, how to use functions, how to create some logic and some useful and practical application. But building on this knowledge, well, you'll be able to tackle more complex programming challenges in the future. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Please leave a comment, a suggestion of any other applications you may want to create. Thank you for watching, and happy coding!